And how are you going to navigate through, I think, one of the most difficult times in your career, which is everybody's coming after you for money.
Each financial decision is not in a silo by itself. It has to be looked at and how it relates to something else in your plan. And most people are not looking at the big picture.
We're going to be talking about the NFL mega contracts that these people are signing right now. Specifically, we're looking at some people that are signing these $25 million contracts. And it's like, this is an amazing amount of money. And why do a large majority of professional athletes go bankrupt after their career, despite making a ridiculous amount of money in a very, very short period of time? And when I say ridiculous, it's not ridiculous that they're making that kind of money. It's they didn't see it coming. They dreamed about it. It's now here. And it's so much money that they don't even know how to handle it. Okay? And what I want to talk about today is what would I do, being the 35-year veteran in the financial services industry? What would be an appropriate way to manage money that isn't in your brain, that's now in your brain? How are we going to manage this so that it lasts for your entire lifetime? And there's two ways to think about this, right? I did some searching and, so one of the things that you look at, right? There's agent fees, there's financial planning fees, there's investment management fees, there's all kinds of things that are going to go on, right? But it's $5 million a year. Let's just take the Giants guy, right? So the new Malik Neighbor signs the $25 million contract, right? He's going to get whatever it is, 4 years, $19 million or whatever it is. And there's a whole myriad of these, okay? What's happening right now after he signed that contract? What was the first thing that was purchased? I don't know. Did he rent an apartment? What kind of apartment did he rent? Did he buy an apartment in a place where he might get traded from? Right? Is he living at home with mom? Is he got a beer contract? Does he have endorsements already? Right? Okay, so what I want to think about for a second is there's this view of the money, right? So the first thing that's going to happen is, depending upon the industry that you're in, I think the NFL caps management fees, at 3%, right? Some go as high as 10%. Then there's contributions that are being made to pensions, which is not out of your thing. It's a time-based concept for most of like the NFL has one that's time-based. The longer you're in, the longer the pension becomes, okay? There is a whole series of things that now have to take place in your world. You don't know who to trust. You don't know why to trust them. They're not wearing T-shirts with "money isn't" on it, right? They're wearing suits and they're smart. But I want you to think about it for a second. People that you might remember as really successful people in different industries and how it played out. Like, somebody that's still touring today who's in his 90s in the music scene is Willie Nelson. Well, Willie Nelson in the early 90s, because of bad planning and bad tax things and fraudulent things that went on around him, he went bankrupt. Okay? There was a guy by the name of MC Hammer who had one of the biggest entourages ever in the history of entourages, right? What was the song? Do you remember this song, Tony? It's not, can't touch this, boom, right? He was the biggest thing in the world, and now where is he, All right. And all the money that he made was sucked out through entourages and protection and other people. And I don't know what he's worth today. I didn't search it, but it popped in my mind. Vanilla Ice was the same thing, right? One-hit wonders. People come on. Like when you look at the average professional athlete time frame, it's 3.5 years that they're in a league. Okay. Do you have vision as to what your entire lifetime is going to be like? Okay. When I was 21, if I came on to $5 million, I don't think I would be prepared. I don't think I had the right, despite growing up in a financial household, I don't think I had the right tooling to think about money in the right way, because you wanted all those wonderful things. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have those wonderful things. You have to blend the abundance mindset with the scarcity mindset, right? Because what you don't know, I mean, how many people actually become professional broadcasters after their career? How many people become really phenomenal coaches and make the top dollars? How many people go, like Steve Young goes and he runs a massive financial services organization. The man is incredibly successful, right? He was the 49ers quarterback, I believe, right? If I have that right. Yes, he was. So like when you start thinking about it, and he was the highest paid backup under Joe Montana, right? And then he stepped up and had a fabulous career when Joe Montana retired. You have to have a tremendous vision for what your future is going to be. And you need to look at it with rose-colored glasses, but you also need to look at it from the reality of the speed bumps, okay? So one of the things that we do is we create what's called a wealth curve blueprint. So if I'm looking at this and I'm saying I've got a 20, 21-year-old with $5 million of income, that person is going to get basically an athletic surtax. Every place that you play, every state that you play a game in, that game is going to be taxed in that state at that level. So now you're filing 35, 40 states of tax returns. You're filing your own state that you live in. You are paying a tremendous amount of income taxes on top of these assets, right? And we just ran some preliminary things saying on a $5 million income, we're going to be generating about $2.4 million in taxes based upon this side, because you're going to get 37% marginal tax bracket. You're going to get state tax, and there's going to be Medicare and FICA taxes to the tune of $123,000 to $130,000, bringing in close to $2.4 million in taxes. The question is, how much of that are you really going to save? How much of that's going to go to debt? How much is that going to go to mortgages and rents? How much is that going to go to property taxes? How much of that is going to go to insurance? How much of that is going to go to lifestyle? That's going to dictate, do we start with savings first or do we start with lifestyle first? Now, once what I'm saying here is we got a signing bonus and there's $1 million sitting in the bank. Now I got to build out a plan. The most important asset is your ability to get out on that field and play the best game that you possibly can. While you're in this sport, you want to run the best game that you can run. You want to have the best training. You want to surround yourself with the best coaches. And a lot of that stuff is not going to come out of the team. It's going to come out of your own pocket, right? So who are you going to invest your time with? Who are you going to invest your skills with? And what is the longevity of your career? You don't know, because there could be injuries, right? So one of the key things is, how well do you protect these assets? Okay. The first thing that you should have is a massive umbrella liability policy. Massive. 10x, $50, $60 million. What is an umbrella policy? It protects you if you get sued. Should you have some sort of specialty disability insurance, even though you might have guaranteed money coming in, do can you insure for a 10-year career even though you've got a 3-year contract? Can you insure if I become disabled for whatever reason on the field, off the field? Can I get an insurance company to cover me for a disability, a career-ending disability? Should I have life insurance? Okay. Now, what's coming is all of these future liabilities and obligations, right? Things that I have to do. So I started thinking about it and thinking about what happens when you look at a plan. And what I did here is I said, let's come over and start with nothing. And somebody goes into a spot where they're making $5 million and they're looking at this very short view. And they're saying, okay, in the short view, by the time I'm done 4 or 5 years into my career, I should accumulate about $18, $19 million and I'm set for life. I'm set. But how come the stats say differently, right? The NBA, according to the searches that I did, now I could be wrong. The searches that I did could be wrong, right? The facts that are being presented as facts aren't necessarily going to be facts, but they're saying 60% of the NBA players go bankrupt within 5 years of stopping the game. NFL is like 16, 17%. Baseball actually performs better. It's like 15 to 20% also. Like it's pretty low. Now, what prevents us from getting to this $18 million mark? And I'm looking at this on a very short view, right? 20 to 35. How long are you going to live for? We're going to pan out and go longer, right? But I want to think about this for a second, right? So there's tax on income. There's tax on gains. There's market volatility depending upon how you invest. There are management fees at, let's say, 1%. And I'm saying only a $400,000 lifestyle. I'm down to about $17.4 million worth of assets. By the time I'm 25, my life should be set, regardless of whether or not I get another contract. Now, if I get another contract, that's when exponential wealth happens, right? But do I build a plan that says, get me to this road and prevent me, build the safety plan first, build a foundation, build a solid plan that if I don't make it 10 years, 15 years in the league, that I have an exit plan. I have a backup plan. If I end my career here, what am I going to do for an occupation? Where do I go to college? Am I in the financial services industry? Am I a sports agent? Am I an attorney? Am I going to be a broadcaster? What am I going to do? Am I going to have a YouTube channel, right? Am I going to have something that's going to generate additional income? Am I going to invest in businesses that are going to generate income? What am I going to do to generate cash flow? And all I'm doing here in this model is basically saying invested in a diversified portfolio. There's so many things that you have to dig in to figure out what it is that you want, right? Now, if I have a $400,000 lifestyle, that works. If I have $1 million lifestyle, all of a sudden, you can start to see the trend. By the time I'm 34, 35, I'm running out of money. Despite getting to 12 to 13 million bucks. Now, I'm going to drop it back down to 500,000 just to have some fun. Okay? So now, in the $500,000 mark, the model's looking pretty good. But now what I want to do is I want to start talking about this and I want to extend this out over the lifetime. And I want to run this so that I'm using historical market data from 1945 through 2023. And what you're seeing is despite rates of return, the 400,000 is too much, right? So let's just bring it back to 300,000. 300,000, that looks good. But then I have an entourage and protection. People that took me to where I am, I have an obligation, I have to take care of them, and I'm going to bring them here. So now that puts pressure on my wealth. It's depleting it. Then I have buy mom a big house. And then we got to give mom income. So now I've got pressure. And then I've got a bigger lifestyle. I've got a bad marriage. I've got shit happens. I've got child support. I've got bad investments. So I make a bad investment for $1 million and it goes off. The amount of fraud that's out there in people saying I've got this fabulous effing investment and it's not real. It's still at epidemic proportions in this business. It is absolutely freaking insane. 2 to 3 weeks, I'm going to have a guest that's what he does. He's like finds the Marty Birds of the world, right? And it's unfreaking believable what's going on, okay? But this bad investment basically puts you in a position, at 60, if you're only spending $300,000 a year with inflation at 3%, your lifestyle's gone to $950,000. That's just 3% inflation. 300,000 at 3% inflation. It's not a lot of money. And people are like, that's not true. That can't happen. Well, my parents paid $43,000 for a beautiful house in somewhere in North Jersey in 1971. Sold it in 87 for $400,000. House is worth over $1 million today. Bought another house when they sold that house, right? The real estate taxes were like $300 a year. They're now $25,000. Do the inflation, right? So my point is, if these people that get these $20, $30 million contracts, they're basically taking 30, 40 years of income and they're getting it potentially in 4 to 5 years. You have to get really real into what is it that you want? How do I want to live the rest of my life if things don't go according to plan? If I don't get the contract renewal, if I get hurt, if I make some bad investments, how do I want to live my life so that this money lasts forever and ever? You could be a rock star. You might have a catalog that's printing money, but is it enough money afterwards to sustain? Spotify and all these things are great because you're making money. But maybe it's $50,000, $60,000 a year. In the first couple of years, you made a couple $1 million. Right? So one of the big important things is you have to protect the wealth from creditors, from bankruptcies, from bad marriages, from bad investments, from bad people, from bad things. You need to get a really good team around you that is going to do things at a high level for you with full disclosure. You're going to follow the money. You're going to know where your money goes, right? You're going to know exactly where every dime that you spend goes. If you don't know that, you're not going to know anything about your plan. You've got to get the financial literacy of how money works, right? Volatility adjusted returns. You've got to understand how to protect. You've got to understand how to negotiate contracts. You got to understand, is the house I'm going to buy, is the apartment I'm going to rent, is the vacation that I'm going on going to be something that I can sustain in the long run? When I get married, I'm going to have kids. I'm going to have colleges. Maybe I don't get married. Maybe I have child support, right? I have college educations. I have things I need to do because of the obligations that I've had. But you got to look at this and say, I'm 20. Where do I want to be at age 30? What am I going to invest in that's going to get me to where I want to be at age 30? And every single year, I believe in 1-year plans. How well did I do? Am I on the right track? Did I save? Now, if I have a 10-year career, I should save the majority of that money during the 10-year career because I'm on the road and I'm playing and I'm doing things. And after that, I reinvent myself. But what you are at 20 will be different than who you are at 30 and 35 and 40 and 50 and 60. Time is going to provide you with values. It's going to provide you with learnings. It's going to provide you with clarity on what it is that you want. I would assume that you don't know what you want, really, at this point. Because I'm 56 and I don't really know what I want. I mean, I do, but I want more. But like, what is it? And how am I orchestrating myself? Like, people come into the NFL, they're there for 3 years, and they're gone. And they score some touchdowns, and that was it. Other players come in, and they're Hall of Fame. Not every player can be in the Hall of Fame. There are players that have great personas that become broadcasters that everybody wants to listen to because they're funny as hell, right? Whether it be in basketball or football or whatever it is, right? They get beer ads, they get endorsements. And it's like, let me look at these things as I lean into them and I get these things. Let's keep going after what are all the opportunities that I can grab along the way and benefit from and make more and more money from my likeness. And how do I save it, protect it, grow it so that it's a sustainable fortune for your entire life? Because for most of you, it's going to be more money than most people that you ever know make. And you probably need to get some new friends. Just saying. We all do, right? We all need to level up. And you've got to study the successful people, the Kobe Bryants, the Michael Jordans, the Tom Brady's of the world, right? You got to look at what did these guys do? How did they have the long careers? How did they protect their money? How did they get themselves to be the best versions of themselves? They invested a lot of time and energy and money into themselves, right? Becoming the best version of themselves on field and off field. I attended a wonderful presentation recently by Todd Herman, who wrote The Alter Ego Effect. And he talked about Kobe Bryant and he talked about the Black Mamba, right? And he had on-court persona that was completely different than his off-court persona, right? When he was on, he was a snake. He was coming after you. He was going to win that game no matter what. If he didn't win that game, he stayed afterwards and he practiced because he was a perfectionist at what he did. He was one of the best. That's what you want to be. And there's things that, Bo Jackson, right? One of the best. Had a bad accident. His potential was far different than his reality. Still a great player, still did well. But there was on court and off court. And the question is, who are you? How are you grounded? Who are you going to be? And how are you going to navigate through, I think, one of the most difficult times in your career, which is every single year, because everybody's coming after you for money, to invest in this, to do that, right? So for step one, what is it that you really want with your wealth? What is your future? How are you going to orchestrate that future? 1-year plans. How do you minimize taxation? How do you save the maximum money? And how do you have enjoyment? Maximum amount of enjoyment for that situation that you're currently in. And when do you increase the lifestyle? Because if you increase the lifestyle too soon, to adapt later becomes very, very hard. There's a careful balance in all of these things. When you look at a blueprint, the savings rate, if it's a 5-year contract, the savings rate should be more than 30%. Because somebody that's going to work for 20 years that's making $5 million a year, 30% is a reasonable savings rate. But somebody that's working for 5 years, may not be. And the problem is the timeline for somebody going to 100 is far greater than somebody that's going to work till 65, 70, 80, 90, Mr. Buffett. The timeline is completely different. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to get a handle on, okay, where am I going to be at 30? What are my obstacles? Did I defend against my obstacles properly? Do I have the right wills and trusts? Do I have the right, prenuptial agreements? Do I have the right umbrella protection? Do I have the right disability and life insurance? Am I taking care of, guaranteeing future income? Am I putting money aside that's going to provide pension-like income? What are my current liabilities? What are my current assets? How do I maximize both of these? And what are my future liabilities? What are the things that I'm going to have in my life that are going to come up and, potentially disrupt my income? Like if I don't make the bad investment, wealth lasts into my 70s, right? And I'm not saying you shouldn't do these things, but they've got to be in the right balance. If they're not in the right balance, you're going to have regret. When you have regret, you can't go backwards and fix it. You can only fix it now. You have to fix the next, 15 years from now, you're going to be somewhere. The question is where? Now is the time to fix the next 15 years. Not 15 years from now. And that applies to anybody listening to this, any career. I hear this, I'll come to you when I have money. Well, you're making money now, aren't you? You have money, but I can't save any money. Well, that's the problem. How do we fix that? It's the same conversation. It's just a different set of numbers. Look forward to talking to you guys. Thank you.